Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Father Sam, how are you?
See how I did that? I got in there first.
Yeah. We both inhaled at the beginning at the same time, and I'm
Well,
going to cut it out for the pleasure of our listeners.
no, before starting a good tangent episode, it's necessary to get one's breath ready.
to
We
breathe.
need to be prepared. Yeah. It's important.
Yeah, I can relate to the need to breathe. That's the need to breathe is a newer, more mundane version of the movie Need for Speed.
Wow.
Weird joke. Yep. That's
Yep.
where we went. So today, Father Sam, we've been covering some heavy topics lately.
Honestly, I'm tired of heavy topics.
Well,
Even just like local stuff. Talking to you right before we started recording, I'm like, I don't want to deal with heavy, difficult things. I don't want to deal with conflict and humans.
humans.
Just leave me alone. But
Yeah,
we can't do
well,
that. We can't do that.
not
It
this
doesn't
week.
work.
Not this week. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to. So I have a couple of comments, and I have one particular question
All right.
related to our topic, which is Charlie Kirk. That's going to be in the title somehow, so people will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Especially now that I've said it out loud. But before we get there, it sounded like you had some things you wanted to say. But before we get there, I wanted to tell you something that I saw, ironically, given our most recent episode on social media. And it was that it was a post from EWTN, and supposedly it said Vatican expert, whoever that is. I imagine it's an official in the Vatican, has given not approval, but has said that the Vatican would consider Fletcher and Harper for the list of martyrs that they have since been taking under the instruction of Pope Francis. Now, there would be a process by which those two children are submitted for that.
Yeah.
But considering our conversation when we talked about that the tragedy at Annunciation School and Parish, right? I thought that I would give you a little update on that.
That's awesome. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
I think that the let's say somewhat expanded definition of martyr is really helpful, and takes into consideration some particular things that in this case for both of those children, actually, because one was Lutheran and one was Orthodox.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
They were students at a Catholic school, but neither one of them was actually a Latin Catholic. So it does. It gives.
And that list, I did see that the list is comprised of Catholics and non-Catholics, or at least has the potential to be comprised of Catholics and non-Catholics.
It's interesting if you look just at certain historical figures or even certain saints. You'll see on their Wikipedia page that they're recognized as saints in the following communities, and it'll say the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the Lutheran Church, the Episcopalian Church, the Anglican Church. Like there's pretty broad acceptance of certain people as martyrs, as saints, etc. So I think it's a good step towards Christian unity. Right, that we are
totally
as much as there's a scandal of division because of the Reformation and the schisms and things like that. There is still, even with those things being acknowledged, there is still a fundamental unity of our Christianity that we need to try to foster. And wherever we can find it, wherever we can see it expressed, we're in a good place. So
and to that point. Because one of the questions that I was thinking to myself in regards to our topic was, is Charlie Kirk a martyr? And I do think that the answer to that question is probably yes. But like I was talking with some other people, and they asked me the question of like, well, does one need to have full communion with the church? And I guess I wasn't sure of the answer, technically speaking. You know what I mean? But my instinct was that, and this is supposed to go away from the heaviness for a second and into something that's hopeful, right? Which is, so he was very clearly in many ways, he was a preacher of Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Like, so keeping aside that, like, there were some things that he spoke of, like gun laws and other, like, strictly, I would argue, political things, like things in the secular sphere that you can hold Christian faith and potentially have an opinion on either side of the issue, right? Mm-hmm. But like, as far as I'm concerned, right, like, Christianity is not it is not possible to integrate Christianity with a pro-choice position. You know what I mean? Like, that's a fundamental issue. If you're pro-choice, like, that's gonna just cut against the faith, you know. And so his, like, you know, tremendous amount of time arguing for the pro-life position, like, that's representative of the faith, you know. And beyond that, he also just, like, at times very explicitly preached Jesus Christ, you know, at his come and see events, you know, at his ask me anything events, you know, or prove me wrong, you know. So I guess that the piece of hope that I wanted to, you know, kind of express is that within my own family, right, my in-laws are not Catholic. They are Christian. And it was definitely a moment of unity. Like, we all recognized, you know, this man's great faith. And if you've, you know, had the opportunity to pay attention to it online, that's, like, pretty much the general consensus. You know, like, Christians of all denominations are, you know, coming around this man and recognizing his faith, you know, and his witness. And I'm pretty sure the word for martyr in Greek does I'm pretty sure it is connected to the word testify, right? Like, testimony and martyrdom are related in Greek, right? So like, there is something to that, you know, that his life has become a testimony to Christians, period. So I find that to be incredibly helpful. Yeah.
I think part of what will help us to answer that question is understanding better what just happened. Why was this done? What were the motivations behind it and everything? And coming to a better understanding of that will help us to have a clearer picture. Yeah. Charlie Kirk was not somebody who I really knew much of anything about. Like, I saw a few of his video clips and things. I didn't really know much about him. What I did know was that I recognized his name and I recognized his face as I've seen him. I've seen some of his videos, but he was not somebody who I really followed. So I don't know everything about what he believed. So I can't give the ringing endorsement to every single thing that he ever said or did. Just because I don't know enough. I'm ignorant. I'm just ignorant in general. But you know, you can just make that a clip. Just me saying I'm ignorant. I'm ignorant.
I'm kidding.
Egomaniacal, I think, is the phrase.
No, let's pile it on.
Very sincerely, I am ignorant of all of his positions and everything that he said. However, what seems to me to be really clear is that he was a guy who believed that it was important to tell the truth and to have facts on your side. That if you want to make an argument, that argument needs to be made from a place of truth, not just from a place of emotion, and that even in times when your gut feeling might go against the facts, it's important to embrace the facts, even when you might not like what the facts are telling you. It's still important to acknowledge them. And I really appreciated that about him. And while he had a style, some of his videos, he could be kind of provocative, and I think intentionally so. There was also something at the core of it that was basically saying, just because I believe this doesn't mean that you can come and trample all over me. You might disagree with the things that I say, but you can't yell and scream at me unless you have facts to back it up. So tell me that I'm wrong, and tell me that I'm wrong using logic and reason. So the phrase that was coming to my mind, and I'm confident that this is not my original phrase,
Okay.
However, I'll say it here, and therefore it's a verbal trademark, I think. If I said it first out loud, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that like Charlie Kirk believed that you should be able to talk about your passionately held beliefs in a dispassionate way. Mm. So a passionately held belief, you are allowed to hold things with great passion, with great fervor, with great zeal. You're allowed to believe these things with great fervor and with great zeal. But when we talk about them, while we can have enthusiasm about them, while we can be excited to talk about them, we need to be able to talk about them also dispassionately, in meaning that we are open to reason, to calm, and to logic as we speak about these things. And in that way, we have better conversations. We're able to engage more fruitfully. We're able to have more serious conversations, and everything ends up feeling. And the experience that everyone has is of a much more civil sort of approach. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just the videos. That's just the sense of sort of the social media presence of the man. Right. I know basically what the newspapers and what the news outlets have reported, that he's a husband and a father of two. He's got two young kids, that this is something important to him, that his faith was something that he spoke about frequently as well. And I think that's really important. The very touching one was that clip that he said very close to the end of his life, actually, just shortly, I think it was a few weeks, he had given an interview, and they said, "How do you want to be remembered?" And he said he wants to be remembered as a Christian, as someone who loved Jesus. That's a pretty great way to want to be remembered. That's a pretty great way to be able to have that ready to go the moment you're asked. I was very impressed by that. I think the thing that's really surprised me, this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. I'll say it like this: surprised me in a very positive way. I'm happily surprised that in the face of this tremendous tragedy, so many people are feeling very, very much affected by it. There's a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. Matt, I do not remember the last time there was an event that within hours of it, I was hearing about it from friends and from not just friends, but I was hearing about it from people. The number of people who I have been approached by just in the days since it happened, including some people who were disappointed that I didn't talk about it in my homily on Sunday. And there was one gentleman in particular who was not disappointed, but he did tell me he was surprised that I hadn't talked about it. And we had a great conversation. I love this guy. It was great. He said, no, I don't mean it politically or anything like that. I thought maybe that would have come up. And the reason it didn't for me this weekend, like, I feel like the lamest excuse in the world, but we had somebody speaking at the end of Mass, and this was like scheduled months out. Plus I had to give a particular talk with, like, we had announced it last week that I was going to talk about it. So this week, like in the interim, obviously we weren't planning for a national tragedy and for a massive news story and for something that's impacting the lives of all these people. And it was like, I can sort of obliquely reference it. What I tried to do, and it was probably a pretty lame attempt, if I'm totally honest, but I tried, was just to say, like, we're living in a very dark world where the truth is often opposed. But the whole purpose of a parish is to stand for the truth and to stand as a light in that darkness and to bring the mercy of God to a world that needs it. I probably could have said more, but even there, like, one of the things that was very heavy on my heart was I've tried too many times to say more about current event things and gotten it wrong.
Right.
The whole story isn't out yet. There's more to be said. And I'm like, I just need to be more careful. I don't want to say things in such a way that I come out strong on one thing, but I don't have the whole story. I've done that enough, and it's not the right way for me, because if I don't have all the facts, what I say ends up being very, very incorrect. I don't say it the right way, and I have to then go back and eat my words, and I'm too prideful. I don't want to do that.
I was going to say that's prudent, but we don't have
No, it is prudent, but then let's say
it's prideful on the back end.
I'll call it an imperfectly motivated prudence. in that
Right, yeah.
my pride does not want me to have to walk back anything that I say,
Right, right.
and therefore I will prudently not say
right.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, I mean, I do. I genuinely, I think that that's wise. I will say that I'm not surprised at all that people came and brought it up to you.
Yeah.
And
so tell me why you're not surprised, because it struck me that here's a guy who I really didn't know that much about, other than I had seen him a few times. But the other piece of it was that I was surprised by the age range on people who were coming to talk to me about it.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me why you're not surprised. And
yeah, I guess, so why am I not surprised? I mean, I'll start like personally, which is I reacted viscerally to it. I was surprised how much what my reaction was upon seeing the news. And admittedly, I knew his name and I know who he was, but it wasn't like I was a gigantic Charlie Kirk fan. You know what I mean? Like I am not a member of Turning Point USA at the organization, of any particular chapter, that is, but I think because I had a good amount of time to think about it and talk about it with others. One of the reasons that I think that I was so affected by it was because Charlie Kirk is not a politician.
Mm-hmm.
He was an ordinary man, admittedly with a tremendous following, right? So, like, not to discredit that. And I suppose insofar as he was advocating and discussing certain political ideas, you could throw him under that category. But what I mean is that he was not running for office.
Yeah.
Right? So this is not a man immediately set up to effect change in the law, in like a very incredibly direct manner. And as such, his assassination, it was he stood for certain ideas. And like when a politician is assassinated or an assassination is attempted, like obviously there are ideas. Like I mean, like I can't remember if it was us or Bishop Frank who interviewed Jamie Baxter, and he said, I mean, we both did, but I don't remember which episode he said it in. He said, like, fundamentally all problems boil down to the level of ideas, right? All things boil down to the level of ideas. And so, like, fair enough,
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, he was not, immediately set up to be changing those ideas. He was just trying to talk about the ideas. And so I think that there was something startling about the fact that this man, this young man who is a young father and a young husband, right? Like, he's got 3 years on me, was killed for his beliefs, period. Like, it ultimately came down to that,
Yeah.
And so that, like, to me, that was startling. Not to mention the fact that, and I admittedly, I actually thought he was older than he was. So when I found out he was 31, I was like, oh my gosh, he's not even. So, but I don't think I was the only one who was frightened by that idea. I think that's implicit in the act, that he wasn't a politician. Like, people picked up on that.
Yeah. He's not a politician, but he is a public figure. I guess I was surprised by the way that this was impacting me, and surprised. It's like happily surprised. I'm glad to see people so aware of this and realizing what this means. I don't mean surprised like I'm confused. It makes sense that people would be affected by this. The fact of their being affected by this is not the surprise. It's the way that they are affected by this, because what I'm seeing is people, and like a wide variety of people, different backgrounds, different ages, different types of people, and people who I know in conversation, like, they hold to some things that I would have to disagree with them about, but this impacts them because one of the things that they appreciated was that he spoke truthfully and honestly, but wanted you to do the same thing. And if you see like the after effects when he talks to somebody, and it's one of the people who says, I never thought of that, or, oh, that's right, never mind, I'm wrong. He doesn't berate them.
Right.
He doesn't treat them badly. He treats them with respect. And even when somebody's screaming at him, he would treat them with respect. There's this sense that that's what's being lost right now, that we've lost this idea, and that we can be civil with one another.
Yeah.
We live it every day, or let's say the vast majority of us live that every day.
Yeah.
We live every day with people who we might not always get along with, but we've learned how to be civil with them. We've learned how to talk to them. We've learned how not to go screaming at every single person who we see who's like wearing the wrong, I don't know, like the wrong political slogan, or driving the wrong kind
wearing
of car,
a New Jersey Devils jersey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We have learned to be basically civil, and even when we have the disagreements, like one of my favorite moments at any New York Mets game is when, for some reason, the chant "Yankees suck" breaks out. There's never a reason for it, because they're not playing the Yankees, but it's funny.
Right.
It amuses me. But even there, like you'll see, I was at a game once, and a guy's he's a fan of the other team. I think it was the Colorado Rockies, and people were like, "Hey man, you're wearing the wrong jersey." And he's like, I know. And there's this like back and forth, and it's good natured and fun, and we can do that kind of thing. We can disagree with each other and still get along. It shouldn't be that difficult. And I think this kind of appeals to that fundamental decency that we're all supposed to have, and that we'd all like to think that we have. And it highlights even more the insanity that we've been living in, which is that no, ideas are violence.
Yeah.
Thinking things is violence. And if you think something, then you therefore are violent. What this is bringing for me has been this quote that's attributed to Venerable Fulton Sheen, where he says, "Tolerance applies only to persons and intolerance to ideas." In other words, we must always be tolerant of persons. A human being is worthy of our respect and is worthy of dignity. But intolerance is about ideas. Where we see falsehood, where we see bad ideas, where we see ideas that to follow them logically would result in harm to persons, that idea has to be stopped. But the person who espouses the idea is not the problem. The idea itself is the problem. Right?
Do you think that he intended that, like the fullness of that phrase, tolerance applies only to persons, intolerance applies only to ideas? Do you think he would have given that second only? And do you think that it would have been so absolute? You know what I mean? Like you can't tolerate any, falsehood?
So I would say the other thing that intolerance applies to is sin.
Sure.
Right. We cannot tolerate sin. And that begins with us, right?
Yeah,
I cannot tolerate sin in myself. But I tolerate myself. Yeah, exactly.
And then you could take the splinter out of your brother's eye.
Yeah. I can't tolerate sin in myself, but I can sure tolerate myself. I hate that I'm a sinner, but I don't hate myself.
Yeah,
right? Or at least I try not to.
Right, or you shouldn't. Yeah,
right.
No, seriously, you shouldn't.
I know that I ought to love myself and everything, even though I am a sinner, even though I am imperfect, even though I need mercy, et cetera, et cetera. That's all, I think, very, very present and very real. The intolerance piece, we ought more and more to apply it to the ideas and to ideals that are false, that are... Look, there's a certain kind of rhetoric that's not appropriate. There's a certain kind of thinking that leads to the worst kinds of things. But the idea itself
I was going to say hell.
Well, yeah, to hell, right. But the person, what do we need to do? We need to engage them. We need to try to convince them. This is why the church, and to be clear here, not every Christian throughout history has always abided by this. Sometimes you will see, and we have plenty of documentation of this historically, of Christians encountering ideas that are false and killing people as a result of the false idea that they espouse.
Right.
But if we really try to engage, and we go to just what does Jesus say in the gospel? He says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. Then bring it to the church. Then bring it to two or three others, right? Or two or three others, then to the church.
Yeah.
And if he won't listen to the church, then cast him out.
Right. Treat him like a Gentile.
In other words, there's got to be an attempt to reconcile the person, by helping him to change his ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Help him to come to that conversion of thought.
And that's
so that,
not a violent act.
Exactly.
It's not. Civil discourse is indeed, well, I suppose, right, like civil discourse is supposed to be civil, right? Like there's no doubt, obviously, we don't even have to, you don't have to go back more than 4 or 5 days, right? Sometimes civil discourse gets violent, right? But it's not intrinsically violent. It's when violence breaks its way into civil discourse and that discourse ceases to be civil.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this whole thing, it just, I have been pleasantly surprised by the way that people have responded, with clearly a desire for civility, clearly a desire for more honest discourse, and also with just an utter horror at the violence that happens here. Whether you agree with Charlie Kirk or disagree with him, it doesn't really matter. Nobody deserves to be shot with a high-powered rifle in broad daylight while trying to have conversations with people. Yeah. Even if you don't like his style.
In front of his children, I believe, too.
Were they present there?
I'm pretty sure. I heard
Lord
that his daughter
mercy.
was there. I know. I heard that his daughter was there, and at hearing the shot, his daughter started to run to him because she was scared.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I mean, this is the definition of tragedy. You know what I mean? It is like, that's another, that was another reaction that I had, so like we talked about a hopeful, reaction. Admittedly, there was also some element of this. I mean, from the perspective of a member of the public who is not intimately related to anybody involved,
Yeah.
There's still an element of this that is incredibly depressing, for lack of a better word, right? Where, you kind of say, like, how did we get here? How on earth did this happen?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have tried to take I've tried to take the advice quite seriously, is from Steve Lee, actually. Steve shared a statement, not just on behalf of the events with Charlie Kirk, but with the Annunciation shooting, and also just like reflecting on 9/11, right? Like, it was a hard week. There were some people last week that had a real hard week. And one of the things he said is evil is on the march, and so like taking note of that, like being aware, right? Like the evil one prowls around like a lion looking for someone to devour, and we must be aware of that. But then he also shared, he shared at least one action step, and it was quoting Mother Teresa. And it was that Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And so it's like, because that one of the reactions that I had, admittedly, that I then thought through and I think prayed over, almost as if it was on the periphery. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say I received, but it's a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and give credit to the Lord. Always a safe thing to do. And my initial reaction was like, this is going to be silly. Boast of your weaknesses. I was like, I need to go study philosophy right now. I was like, I need to ensure that if someone comes up to me with a debate about like some fundamental pieces of life, I can provide them with an argument, and I can do so with clarity, and without a level of harshness. I also happen to think I can be incredibly critical sometimes. I don't have to examine my conscience on the air, Father. But the point is that like I know. The point is that like that was how I reacted. I wanted to react by shoring up like metaphysical stances that I could then bring forward in conversation.
Yeah.
And then in part through that quote, but then also like reflecting on Pier Giorgio Frassati. I was like, oh, no, like, I need to just be more charitable in my circle. I was like, the answer is charity. And that, like, obviously there is some, I'm not discrediting clarity and, like philosophical substance. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to say that there's no place for politics or any of that, but it became evident to me that the answer is love. You know, because if we have our, you know, if we are girded in the truth but don't have love, what's it for?
Yeah. I think about it like this, that every time we face these major crises in the world and in the news, in our society, the first place we really have to look is interiorly. We have this habit of always looking at something on the X, like let's blame something, let's blame someone. But if we can look internally and realize that there's certain dispositions that all of us adopt at different times that lead to this kind of thing. I may not have been a person who has ever pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
I've only ever fired a gun 3 times in my life, and always in a safe way at a range. Never at a living thing or another person, like targets, skeet, things like that.
Yeah.
And not with any particular effectiveness either. I'm not good at it. So
yeah, fair enough.
Like, don't look to me for protection. I can't provide it. I lack those skills, right? But if we look into our own hearts, we'll recognize those times when, you know what, I've been angry or hateful. I have harbored these kinds of feelings. So I may not have been the person who let that go to the point of pulling the trigger, of doing something vile and evil, but I've done plenty of vile and evil things. Yeah. Because that's part of my own experience. Now I repent of it. Yeah. I want that gone from my life. I want the hatred, and I want the darkness, and I want the vitriol and everything. I want that gone from my heart, because it doesn't do me any good, and it most certainly doesn't do any good to the people around me or to the community that I serve or to the world as a whole. So I need to get rid of it. When you look at these things that happen, whether it's at Annunciation or Charlie Kirk, or any of the other places where we see violence and hatred all over the place, it comes from this place where there's hatred in the heart. And when we uproot from the human heart that hatred, that's when we start to see the real transformation that happens, that needs to happen rather. One of the things that really is also jumping out to me is that it seems like, and this, I may be trying to diagnose too much here. So let me preface it with that. I may be throwing out something without sufficient reflection. I'm willing to own that. I will step into this even without extra prudence and throwing my desire to not be pridefully to the side. Let me say it like this. I really am also starting to think that part of our problem is that the reason that ideas would lead to such hatred, and the reason that ideas, mind you, there's nothing that I've seen anywhere where Charlie Kirk ever called for violence against people or called for people to be treated without justice under the law. Right? There's no place, there's no single thing that I've ever seen, or that at most you see like quotes of his taken out of context, or him saying this particular law sets up something that is unjust for a certain class of people. You don't see him saying this is a bad group of people. This is a group of people worthy of hatred, worthy of violent actions taken against them. You don't see, I have not seen that anywhere. I've never heard of that. And it doesn't seem like, surely if he was a guy who was out there calling for violence and calling for people to die, that would have been the headline, the number one headline. Yeah. And it's not out there, which means that he was a man who proposed ideas, and his ideas did not involve death. Yeah.
Now there definitely has been there's been a like very dramatic reaction to this, which is I think a lot of silent observers silent observers have made the decision to become active participants. Yeah. And the reason that I say that is because I read that over the weekend. So Turning Point USA, right? Like that was his organization. Had 900 college chapters and 1,200 high school chapters. Are you familiar with this or no? You know where I'm going?
No,
I mean, I'm sure you know where I'm going. Okay.
I don't know where you're going.
And over the weekend, how many inquiries for new chapters do you think they received? So they have a total of 2,100 split between college and high school.
Okay. I mean, they must have received a few thousand.
37,000.
Oh my goodness.
So like, and again, right? So I recognizing that there's like a certain political affiliation, right? But really, what this guy stood for was communication,
Yeah.
right? Like wanting to have that discourse, right? And so, I mean,
you know,
like he was very public about the fact. I mean, I was reading this, right? He was public about the fact that his goal was to have a Club America. That was the name of their high school program in every high school in America, which is 23,000. And how, like, you know, now that goal has just, like, the proximity to that goal has increased dramatically.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
And right, and to me, this represents, you know, hopefully a turning point. And I'm not trying to be ironic. I mean, the executive producer
no pun intended there. Yeah,
of the Charlie Kirk show said, like, we can't believe that. Like, he didn't say we can't believe, but he said this is the turning point. You know, and how amazing, albeit tragic, right? That is. It can be both of those things at once, I think.
You know, one of the discussion points that I had with a couple of people in the aftermath of all of this was that political assassinations and these sort of epical moments where you have these kinds of events. One of the things that they're talking about is that in the last 2 years there have been multiple either assassinations or assassination attempts on major public figures, including the president, right?
Yeah.
So we've got all of this stuff happening. And the temperature's really been turned up on a social level.
Yeah.
And it feels an awful lot like JFK, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, Malcolm X, heck, go back as far as Gandhi. These figures who were respected leaders in their own right, who are then assassinated. But what happens in the wake of the assassination? So MLK is assassinated, and it galvanizes even more the civil rights movement to keep going, to keep pressing forward, so that people can be protected from racist laws. And that's a good that comes from it.
Right.
When I think there are certain moments when a person's death, whether they are a political, ecclesial, state, civil, or just a thought leader, if there's especially a very public death like this, oh my goodness, it does something to make people say, I've been kind of an armchair quarterback with all of this. I've been a pretty silent observer. I've not really gotten very involved, or I've not really taken much of a stand, but people say, wait a second, it's wrong to do this. And the hatred that would drive someone to do this, something's wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't allow that kind of hatred to actually stand. That is a level of hatred that has to go away. Oh, I remember what I was going to say before.
Perfect.
That reminds me, hatred. Okay, so Charlie Kirk's not a person who was promoting hatred that would lead to violence, but we're now living in a world where ideas are considered violence. Speech is considered violence, even when it does not involve actually talking about taking someone's life or doing them bodily harm. It's about whether or not something is true or false. And if you say, Matt, something is true, and I tell you it's false, then I have done violence to you somehow.
Right.
Right. And unfortunately, the places where that seems to be amplified the most is in social media squares.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I was going to say the internet before. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's say it begins with the internet. Whoever invented the comment section, God have mercy on them.
Seriously.
But it began there, and then it has only been exacerbated by social media. That makes you think that you are being bombarded constantly by hateful comments, that ideas that are morally abhorrent to you are constantly threatening your very well-being. when in fact you're in a perfectly safe place. In fact, you're at home. In fact, you're surrounded by people who care for you. But the further you dive into that social media black hole, or the further you dive into the nether regions of the comment section of whatever article you just read, or the further you go isolating because you're so lost in these ideas, you begin to think that anyone who opposes this idea that seems to be everything is really opposed to you and to your safety. And so somebody like a Charlie Kirk comes to a college campus, and somebody who's been so lost in these ideas and in the grip of these spaces where those ideas are just constantly being pushed to them, they look at him. He doesn't know them. He's never seen them. And they see in him a threat. And he looks at them and sees somebody who's lost. But the very fact that he can say, I believe that your thinking is misguided about this, becomes for them an existential threat.
Well, and I think I would be curious to see if you can shed light on this from the perspective of your studies, of psychology. And I guess also kind of the spiritual life. I think that this concept of violence and ideas and like an existential threat, to an extent that perception is correct if not because they're actually unsafe, but like the perceived threat to their view of life is correct because. And I guess I'm thinking specifically of someone who subscribes to the concept of relativism, right? Like, isn't it currently like built into American law that one of the elements that defines liberty is the ability to determine your own sense of morals, right? And so, like, if you subscribe to that definition of liberty, then your liberty is being threatened by the idea that maybe your ideas are wrong. Right, because like the way it's currently laid out is that you get to be the source of your morality, and so like this very relativistic anthropology, is under threat when someone says actually, not everything is subjective. I guess I don't know if there's a question attached to that.
Well, no, I think what it is that we often experience. The idea, if you have like, my subjective sense is that, let's say I believe that men with beards, glasses, headphones, and gray t-shirts. By the way, folks, that's what Matt's wearing right now. Yeah, right. I believe that men with gray t-shirts, beards, glasses, and headphones are fundamentally less than me.
I was wondering which direction you were going to take.
Let's say I believe that. And I'm then approached by a guy in glasses, a beard, headphones, and a gray t-shirt who is able to demonstrate to me that my thinking is wrong. There's two things that are happening. One, on an objective level, I'm wrong. It's not true that the way that someone is dressed or someone's appearance makes them less than me. It is not true that anyone is less than me, because the dignity of our humanity is equal. And that goes whether I like a person or dislike them, whether I agree with their actions and their behaviors or not. It doesn't matter. We are equal in dignity. And this is a fact. And this goes beyond my own subjective experience. But on a subjective level, that person who tells me that I'm wrong, who informs me, I might at first feel pretty rebellious against it, right? Like, there is nothing I enjoy less than being corrected. Right? I never have a good time when someone corrects me for something.
Right.
But almost always, I realize very quickly that I needed that correction.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes me a few days to accept that I needed to be corrected. And other times I realize that I'm being corrected about something for which I do not need to be corrected. Right? The correction itself is not really fair or right.
Right.
Anyway, it's possible for both objective and subjective things to coexist at one and the same time. They are not mutually exclusive things. No. If somebody's colorblind,
I would even argue they have to exist at the same time.
Yeah. If someone is colorblind, the fact that
didn't mean to correct you there. Sorry.
No,
sorry, my bad.
The fact that this colorblind person perceives one color in a certain way doesn't mean that the actual color of the thing is different. There's an objective reality. This pen is blue, but because of color blindness, I see it as green. I don't know what the actual changing of colors is for people who are colorblind.
Yeah, that's okay.
If I might see it in a different way, but it's just my perspective is off. But I still, it's true, experience it in this way. And so I might be offended by an idea. Somebody might say something to me that offends me. It offends my sense of well-being. It offends my sensibilities. But the thing that I was told might be objectively true. I just experience it as something different. What we have to do is make allowance for both what is objectively true and the fact that I feel a certain way about it. We have to make allowance for the fact that I may not like how I am experiencing this truth or how I'm experiencing this idea. And it may be I don't like it because I know that this idea is false, or even that this idea is threatening to me. Right? Like if I take it a step further and I say to you, I believe that men who are wearing gray t-shirts, have beards, wear glasses and headphones aren't just less than me, but that they should be put in jail. They should be deprived of their freedom and made to make license plates so that the rest of the world can have valid license plates on their cars. Right? I come up with that. You on a subjective level, because you happen to be a man wearing a gray t-shirt, a beard, glasses, and headphones. You may feel not only is that an objectively incorrect assessment of things, it is also personally threatening.
Right.
Right. And in that case, you would be right. But now we take it to something else. If I say, I think that there should be, I think that the state should pass a minimum wage law, or they should raise the minimum wage. And you disagree. Well, there's actually room for us to disagree. Me thinking that there should be a minimum wage law and you disagreeing. I don't know what you think about the minimum wage law. I don't know what I think about the minimum wage law. But if supposing you and I have a disagreement about that, it is neither a threat to, it's not a threat to either of us that there's that disagreement. There is such a thing as a minimum wage law. Perhaps justice demands it to be higher, perhaps not, but we are not doing violence to one another by having that disagreement. Yeah. And we have to come to that place where we can realize that just disagreeing or having a different idea doesn't mean objective violence.
I do think that it's easy to. So I think that there's, it's easy to take things so personally because a lot of the disagreements are about way more personal things than minimum wage laws. So
well, and in that place, okay,
for
so
example,
sometimes when something is really personal, somebody gets upset because my mother experienced this, or I have a cousin who is experiencing this right now. Well, okay, in that case, then we need to learn how to make the distinction between the idea and the person that we're worried about or the personal experience that we've had. There are things that might have traumatized you or might have hurt you, and we need to reverence that. But you can't come into an argument assuming that everybody knows about the trauma that you've endured or the fact that you have a third cousin who lives in another country who might disagree with this idea. You've got to, let's get all that out there. Make the argument personal in the sense of saying, hey, I know that my parents dealt with this problem. And because they dealt with it, I learned this. Now, what you're saying sounds like it would negate what my parents have been through, or it would prevent them from having done this, which in that case would mean that I wouldn't be able to be here having this conversation with you. Okay, now we've created the reason why there's turned up emotion. But now that also means that I can engage with you with greater empathy. So we got to learn how to have those conversations so that you can actually engage at that empathic level.
I agree. I guess I'm just trying to say let me give two examples that tend to be contradictory to one another, or at
Mm-hmm.
least maybe I'm just playing into a social trope, like that this is how the internet perceives it and promotes it. Right, so if I were to go to someone and they were to openly disagree with my Christian faith, well, like, my Christian faith actually is on the level of identity. Like, it has impacted my identity. I believe that I am a child of God,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it actually is at that anthropological level. And so, like, I think that, like, in fairness, right, now, I think the other thing that identity politics has attached itself to is sexual orientation. And now, as like a Christian, I would try and urge someone to not view themselves through the lens of their sexuality, so close to their identity. But the reason that I gave the Christian example first is because I do that. Like, I have a belief that has impacted my identity. You know what I mean? And so I think that's why it gets so tumultuous, because we have these things so close to the cuff. And I guess I'm just saying it because I'm trying to steelman that position. Like, I don't know what to do about that necessarily, other than, like, embrace some level of meekness and cordiality. You know what I mean? Which is, like, what we're aiming at in civil discourse.
Yeah.
But I understand why people take things personally, as someone who has things that are personal to him and has taken things personally.
But this is where arguing with dispassion is really the key. A dispassionate argument doesn't mean that you let go of the thing that you hold with passion.
Yeah.
It means that you enter into the discussion with calm, with humility, and with a desire for truth and honesty, objectivity.
Yeah.
I'm going to approach this like, actually, just like what you just did. I'm trying to steelman this other side.
Yeah.
That's actually key to civil discourse. Assume the best about your interlocutor.
Yeah.
Right? Assume that this person who you're talking to is absolutely sincere.
Yeah.
Even if you disagree with everything that they say, starting from the perspective that this is a sincere, honest person, we can do something with that.
When you say assume they're sincere, do you mean assume that they think that their position is, maybe this is too light, is good? You know what I mean? Like, right, isn't that a thing? I think it's Augustine says that, like, the reason we sin is because we have perceived some good. It's just that we've perceived like a misconstrued good, like a twisted good. Right?
Yeah,
but like, we're pursuing good nonetheless.
Yeah,
we're pursuing what we think is good, is what I mean.
Yeah,
and so in believing someone's sincere, we say, oh, they see this thing as a good.
Yeah, assuming that they're sincere, it might be too relaxed a way of speaking, but basically, it means they really believe it. Even if they're wrong,
right?
They believe it, and they believe it in good faith. They don't believe it having. Let's say if you come in and say 2 + 2 is 5, okay,
right.
Matt, you're incorrect. But I'm not going to get mad at you for believing that.
Right.
You believe it in good faith. You believe it because you were told. If I
start telling you 2 + 2 is 5, you should get mad at me because I am trying to mess with you.
Like, assume that people believe it because it's like the best possible conclusion they could reach.
Yeah.
This is like, again, I don't want to get like crazy political or anything, but back at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was asked, there's a fella here in the parish who was opening up a store, and it was the craziest time to be opening up anything. Anything. Yeah, but he asked me if I would come and bless it. So I went, and this was like, you have to wear a mask to do anything, anywhere you go. Still in that time. So I've got my mask on. I go and I bless the building, and I walked outside, and this lady pulled up in a car, and she had like cardboard boxes taped, just pieces of cardboard, I guess, taped to her windows with signs saying, "You sheeple are so," like, insulting anybody who's wearing a mask and all this other stuff. And, I have a lot of regrets about how I imbibed information during the pandemic. And there's a lot of things that I wish I had been faster to pick up on, and a lot of things that I'm very suspicious of still, as a result. But at the time I wasn't. At the time I was like, the best information I've got, the best I can do is follow these rules that they've put on. Even if, like, now we know putting on a mask doesn't really do much of anything other than it can help prevent you from spreading germs if you have them. It doesn't actually protect you very much from the germs that are out there. Anyway, whatever it is. And even then, how, like, we're not really entirely sure how effective they are. It's a different thing. Not important.
Yeah, you said you didn't want to get political.
I know. But, like, I was sincere.
Right.
I wasn't doing something like to willingly be ignorant. I was going with the best information that I had.
Yeah.
And so part of the mercy, this is in this case mercy to myself that I have to give myself, is I was acting from a place of sincerity. If I can assume that people are sincere, I get a lot less defensive and angry with them. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when somebody is sincere, they can be sincerely wrong.
Yeah.
And if somebody is sincerely wrong, then there's a thing. It's a work of mercy to instruct the ignorant.
Right.
It is a work of mercy to tell somebody, actually, the ideas that you're sharing here are incorrect, and I've got a responsibility to tell you otherwise. Now, I can do that well, or I can do that poorly. I know some people who are amazing educators, who have a tremendous gift for helping people to see why they're wrong. I know other people who, in the name of telling somebody that they're wrong, kind of insist on, but you're wrong. You're wrong, and you're stupid for being wrong. And how could you possibly be so stupid for being so wrong? And what happens then is that you kill any possibility of real conversation, or of even the person being open to the idea that you're sharing with them, even if you're trying to share with them the right idea. Mm-hmm. Right? When we can engage with more civil dialogue and discourse, we do better. Yeah. And this is where intolerance has to be about ideas and not persons.
Yeah. How much of this is related to the virtue of humility? Because I'm thinking about, like, there is this societal level for this kind of discussion, but also I live this out every day in my marriage where Renee and I will disagree on something, and go at it. Not, again, actually, like, we try pretty hard to be somewhat dispassionate about it, and then more often than I'm happy to admit, I end up saying, you're right, I am wrong about this, and so, like, admittedly, and obviously it's really not to boast about humility, because what I'm really saying is you have no idea how often I'm wrong. But like, it has led to the cultivation of that virtue. Like, it would be false humility for me to say that, like, but being humbled has worked, and so, like, this lesson can be applied to your marriage, or your relationship with your kids. Like, that's a hard thing to do. Like, I've already had to apologize to my son, because, like, I made a mistake.
But there's a beautiful thing that you do when you do that, which is you model for him what that looks like. Now, this is where I think we maybe bring it back to Charlie Kirk. The fact that he did so much of his work on college campuses, the fact that so much of his effort was directed at places where people are supposed to be freely exchanging ideas, even when they don't agree with each other. What you see very often, and this really is, I think, an existential crisis that the American education system needs to face, is that an overly politicized version of all of this leads to some pretty negative consequences, not least of which is the fact that free exchange of ideas and honest debate about things is more often absent from our institutions of higher learning than it is present. Yeah. And when you have the people who are supposed to be teaching people how to think and how to have these really serious discussions coming out and protesting people who have opposing ideas, we've lost the idea of a university.
Yeah.
Go all the way back, like the very beginning origins of the university and the disputations, to have an academic argument was a feature, not a bug, a feature of university life.
It's like the proper telos. Yeah.
Exactly. This is what it's for. We're actually meant to stand here and have differing viewpoints and try to prove each other wrong, so that we can arrive at the correct answer.
Right.
And sometimes you would see that happening very forcefully. If you read certain disputations, there's some things that are pretty strongly phrased.
Yeah.
And quite beautifully phrased, but strongly. And even to the point of saying, this is such an indefensible thing to say that it must come from the mouth of Satan or something like that.
Yeah.
You'll see that come up every once in a while, but it's really important, that free exchange of ideas. Yeah.
I think another, like a related topic to this free exchange of ideas, is the false humility of a permanent agnosticism about everything. I think that's very common. I remember when we interviewed Andrew, my brother-in-law, about his conversion. We talked about this. It's like the false humility of a who knows, and how common that's been. And of course, I suppose built into that is why relativism doesn't work, because relativism suggests that everything is subjective, but relativism is in and of itself an objective statement of truth, right? It's saying that everything is relative, so it's assuming objective truth in the proposition that everything is subjective, and as such, canceling itself out, right? So, I guess my question is this, right? I'm someone who believes in objective truth. I think that it's demonstrable that objective truth exists, and simultaneously, unsurprising to everybody listening, there are things I don't know. and so, how does one maintain a proper humility and understanding while fighting for truth, passionately, dispassionately?
Yeah, I think it's when you're able to say, these are the things that I do know to be true, and these are the things that I know to be false. Or, frankly, I think the Charlie Kirk approach was very good. Somebody could come up and say, I believe this, and you'd say, okay, why? Tell me why you believe that. And if they would start to say, I feel that, he'd say, no, tell me why. Don't tell me what you feel. Give me facts. Give me reasons. That you feel a certain way. I respect your feeling. I don't know if he ever said that, but I can I can see that you feel something, but I want to know why you feel that way. Get at the core of it. And this is actually part of the whole idea of a more carefully examined life. The unexamined life, Socrates says, is not worth living. We have to examine, we have to see why, and we have to be curious about that. But that's the whole idea of a university. That's the whole idea of education, is that we're opening ourselves up to those possibilities. The thing is that you don't begin to teach anything unless you believe it to be true. Mm-hmm. So what you teach your son when you say, I'm sorry, is it's possible to be wrong. And the correct thing to do when you're wrong is to apologize. Mm-hmm. And you know that to be true. You know that to be true always, right? Yeah. When he sees you apologize to your wife, he knows if in marriage I'm wrong, I need to apologize to my wife. I need to say I'm sorry. I need to rebuild. And so he's learning that actually on a relational level, these things can happen. It's possible to disagree. Mm-hmm. It's possible even to have a rupture within that relationship, and it is possible to fix it. It's possible to repair. It's possible to get better. We can do these things, and we can do these things quite well.
Sounds like you just solved all of the political problems in America.
If only it was that easy. It's not how it's going to happen. But yeah, I'm sure, Matt, there's a lot more we can say about these things. But all the way around, this is it's a painful chapter, I think, in this moment of our history as a country and as a society. It really does bring me back to, we have to do this. Oh, I remember the other thing that I was gonna mention.
Yeah.
All right.
Go for it.
The other thing about this is what happens when we lose our faith in something, something will always fill the vacuum. We are made to worship. We have this in us to worship, right? I mean, you and I have talked about this before. Show me what you worship, and I'll show you who you are. And here's the thing. Father Brendan Kilcoyne on the Brendan Option, he's my new favorite priest. He talks about this in one of his episodes. He says that people haven't abandoned religion. He says just as they've abandoned Catholicism.
Wow, interesting.
He says they've replaced Catholicism with a different religion. And in the particular context that he was talking about sports. They've replaced Catholicism with the religion of sports. Well, in the United States, if there's a religion that has taken the place of Christianity or our Catholicism, most often it's politics.
Yeah.
Most often the thing that people get really the most agitated about, or the thing that they think defines everything about their life, is politics. There's a reason that people, after an election, are either in an absolute meltdown or an absolute celebration. The absolute meltdown is, I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to explain this to my children, or it's, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened. Our country is safe once again. Right. And I don't think that either of those things are true. Right? After an election, that's just not the case. But that's because I have a different religion.
Right.
My religion is Catholicism. I believe in Jesus Christ, and he's the king, and he's the Lord of my life, and he's got to be the Lord of the entire world and of the universe. And so whoever happens to be elected, they might pose an existential threat to me. They might not. The particular politics of the day might or might not have an impact on me. They might cause me some physical harm, or they might create difficulties for me in terms of the fact that I still have to pay taxes. Nobody's been able to figure that one out. I'd vote for that guy. You know? But whatever it is, like, if we worship politics, then pretty soon, because politics don't include God. Ultimately, what is politics? Politics is the polis, the people. The more you worship politics, the more you worship at that altar, the more your worship becomes turned inward on yourself. And the more we become self-referential, the more we become focused entirely on me and what I want. And the more we become focused on that self-referential outlook, the more we're worshiping not just the people or the political ideology, the more we're worshiping our own self. And the minute we start worshiping ourselves, we start forgetting about others. We start to lose sight of others. And anyone who does not worship us also must be a threat.
Right.
That's where this violence comes from.
Yeah.
That's what I'm more and more convinced of. And I agree with you, Matt. I think this is becomes a wake-up call for people. It makes them realize things. And it makes them say, wait a second, I've been sitting back. I've not really done much. I've had very little activity, or I've thought this would all kind of work itself out. I need to take a more proactive approach. I can't be passive in this.
Yeah. And to that extent, not to remove a final word from you. But I had said that I wanted to bolster my philosophy. I wanted to bolster my capacity to not memorize, but to recall, certain philosophical truths, and then determined that the answer was charity. Well, that actually has ended. That does take the action of me going home and loving my family better, but it also it invigorates my work. Right? The whole point of Veritas is not strictly so that people will just be on the same theological and philosophical page as us. That leads somewhere, and it leads to love. Right?
I got a book for you then.
Nice. Which book?
It's called Philosophy for the Layman.
Cool.
And it
I like both of the. Well, I was gonna say I like both of those things, but what I mean is I like the former, and I am the latter.
Yeah. I'll lend it to you. Yeah. It's basically giving it's particular for Catholics who are trying to study their faith more, but it gives you the basic philosophical pieces that are necessary to help you if you're not going to be pursuing higher studies in philosophy. It gives you the basic stuff so that you can know.
Yeah, sweet.
And then it'll point you in the direction for other things if you want to dive deeper.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. That's our free sponsor for the day.
Anyway.
Eventually we'll start charging.
Matt, I appreciate you letting me talk this out with you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
There's certainly a lot there.
As always.
And yeah, I think it's just a good reminder. We got to pray for our country.
Oh yeah.
And we've got to be the instruments of civility and peace in our own society as much as we can be.
And let us not forget that Our Lady of Fatima called for us to pray for peace in the world. Amen. And to sacrifice for peace in the world. So now, before we go, I want to say one thing, okay? And it is that next week, our episode of The Tangent will feature a returning guest.
Oh, yeah.
This is something I want to start doing. I want to start giving little previews.
Okay.
And we will be having Father Klimek back on. He was one of our first, he might have been in the first 20.
He was, yeah, definitely.
Right. He was early on. We interviewed him previous to this, our upcoming episode, about a book called For the Love of Mary. If you want to go back and listen to that, he talked about Medjugorje. He talked about St. Gemma Galgani, how he was healed through the intercession of St. Gemma Galgani. If I'm remembering correctly, he had a fractured spine.
Big old car accident, yeah.
Yeah. And so that episode was really fantastic. But next week, we'll be discussing with him his new book from the St. Paul Center, that is Walking Through the Mysteries of the Rosary. And one of the reasons we chose to do that is because by the time that episode comes out, it's either like October 1st or 2nd or like September 29th, something like that. So we're coming on the month of October.
Month of the Rosary.
So that's a little preview. It's a little preview of what's to come, and you could go back and listen to the previous episode if you'd like. Okay. Thanks, Father Sam.
Thanks, Matt. See you later.
It's my pleasure.
Peace.
Thanks for watching today's video. Let us know what you thought down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.